From a non-native English speaker's perspective, there is an interesting thing about the English language that I notice every time I speak some words. It's very different from our first language, which is Russian. And I notice that before I actually say something in the English language, it is preceded by a feeling of an idea that I later verbalize, that you hear as the words pouring out of my mouth. I have been studying English for many years, and I've been teaching it for many years to learners all around the world. And one thing that I have always been very passionate about is that I feel that there must be a faster way to acquiring a language than a traditional or conventional method that is taught in most courses and schools. I have been analysing my experience, and being a closet linguist, I have been thinking about it quite a bit. And here is the conclusion that I have arrived at. I've noticed that there is a point in our language learning journey at which we kind of grasp the whole principle of the language. And we can do that basically overnight, and that's how I grasped how to do a British accent in my experience. It happens in a split second, just like that. And in that moment, we actually grasp the wholeness of that language as a system. And that is something that I'm trying to teach to my learners, who I truly love and who I care so much about. When I went to school, and this is my personal example, let me know in the comments if you resonate with it too. I remember being taught a lot of rules for our first language, which was Ukrainian in my country. And it was very interesting that even though I could speak the language very well, and I could feel the bodily discomfort every time a word was misspelled, or I was looking at a mistake that was made within a word, I was kind of misguided by the rules. And I recognise that there might be validity to learning rules. We should not dismiss that by any means. But an important thing to bear in mind, I believe, is that there are certain people, there are certain minds whose brains are rather misguided by sets of rules than actually enriched and facilitated by them. As you may guess, I belong to the people who are misguided by sets of rules and who base their ability to speak a language on their internal feeling of that language. I filmed a video for this channel that was titled "English is a Feeling," that you can check for further information on that. In this video, I just want to talk about the fact that language is a system, and it's a holistic system that is directed by specific rules that are not linguistic, that are rather internal and psychological in nature, that could be felt. And those are actually the rules that guide our ability to speak a language. That was a conclusion that I have arrived at. Just start noticing how with your first language, you have that sensation that allows you, no matter how many words you know, to extract a coherent sentence every time you want to verbalize an idea. The reason why I think it's valuable to bear this in mind is that many traditional methods of teaching language are backwards. If you think back to your own genuine experience of learning language, you'll be very quick to notice that the first thing you learned to do was to speak a language, and only after that you were given some rules that solidified your understanding of how that language functions. And that is something that authentically happens in our human experience. At first, we have a language, and then we have rules that explain the workings of that language. If you think back to human evolution, or if you think back to animal kingdom evolution as it's taught in classic history books, notice that animals came first, and then arrived the human mind that divided the animal kingdom into feline members, right? Members of the feline family, such as tigers and lions and cats. And the canine family, such as dogs and wolves. Well, wolves and then dogs originated. And all of that is second-order phenomenon. It's not the first-order phenomenon. What I'm saying is that language is the first-order phenomenon, and the rules are the second-order phenomenon. And it's way more natural if we learn to pick up the first-order phenomenon first, and then, very naturally, without violating the course of evolution, we learn to ascribe certain sets of rules to the first-order phenomenon that we have already mastered. I think it's very interesting to think in these terms, as we're arriving at our understanding that everything in the world is interconnected. We start seeing that interconnectedness everywhere, language included. I think by discovering principles that guide our ability to speak a language, we can become closer to the point where we grasp that language at one point. We grasp it wholly. That's what we do. Isn't that interesting? And I believe that human mind has an incredible capacity to do it. I was pointed out by my friend that the fact that I was able to grasp the workings of a British accent basically overnight. In the evening, I just remember myself not being able to speak English very clearly, whereas in the morning I woke up having a very holistic understanding of how the British accent worked. And my friend pointed out to me that I was actually able to grasp the whole principle behind the British accent. And I don't deny the validity of breaking it down into pieces. I think it's very crucial to study individual building blocks of a language, such as words or how words interconnect and idioms and stuff like that. But it's also really important that we feel how the English language is different from our own first mother tongue, and that we actually grasp the principles behind the English language. Such principles might include noun before verb, adjective before noun, object after the verb, stuff like that, collocations that work together. Think about this. Your fluency does not depend that much on how many colourful words you know. Rather, it depends on your ability to create a coherent sentence using the building blocks at your disposal. Thank you for your time. I'm always happy to welcome you to Inktelligent. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye for now.